Question is the bill be agreed to. The member for Hasluck.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I rise to support the Higher Education Research Reform Amendment Bill presented to the House by the Minister for Education. But let me take you to something that I've been reading which I find interesting. The 2013-14 Global Competitiveness Report has Australia ranked 21st outside the top 20 most competitive countries in the world for the first time. The WEF measures, scores and ranks countries across the range of economic indicators for a set of so-called pillars that are thought to drive economic growth. These pillars are individual economies, institutions, infrastructure, macroeconomic, environment, health and education, product market efficiency, labour market efficiency, financial market development, technological readiness, market size, business sophistication and innovation. Australia's economic ranking has seriously deteriorated since the turn of the century. In the early 2000s, Australia was ranked in the top 10 most competitive countries in the world. We've now been overtaken by New Zealand, who is coming in at 18th on that ranking in the 2013 report, up 5 places from the previous year. If we are serious about the economic well-being of this country and the skills that are required, then the education reform proposed by the minister in this bill gives us the opportunity to allow universities to have some unfettered freedom, to look at the market forces that prevail in terms of courses. I find it fascinating that when you read some of the higher education material, to have 29 schools of teaching, 29 schools of nursing across this nation, there are niches that need to be considered in the way in which we skill and develop the young people for the future. Deputy Speaker, in my first speech to the House, I spoke about a couple of things that go to the heart of these reforms, and I want to take a moment to quote from my first speech. I used education as a way to change my life to get to where I am now, and I believe that a quality education is a key to the success for any young Australian. I went through higher education at a time when it was not funded. I used a Commonwealth Scholarship. As a country kid, I enrolled after receiving a Commonwealth Scholarship, and then through that process developed a career pathway that gave me opportunities. Higher education is important, but it is important in the sense that if Australia is going to shift its rankings in the economic climate in which we sit, then it is important that we develop the courses that will enable the skilling of young people to push this country to another level in a way that positions us far better economically in the world. All of us have become so used to the lifestyle that we have, and our universities themselves support it, because when I read the universities of Australia, the peak body representing Australia's universities call on the Parliament to support the deregulation of Australian universities with changes to the government proposals that will assure affordability for students and taxpayers. I would hope that all of us would transcend the politics, the scaremongering and the exampling that I've heard from speakers, because whilst higher education is important, it is equally important that the reforms enable us as a country to provide the diversity of career pathways that will be needed that take us into a future in which there is a need for adaptability, there is a need to develop the talent skill of young Australians who are still coming through. If we reflect back for a moment, 30 years ago, the jobs that existed 30 years ago no longer exist. We cannot continue to teach today for tomorrow with yesterday's practices. We have to consider the opportunities that reforms will give universities to position us in a competitive market. When I was overseas, I had the privilege of looking at university world in the United Arab Emirates, and the key message I got from each of those universities in talking with those who were heading those universities was the freedom for the diversity and the opportunity to do some unique things outside of the constraints of their home countries, and to provide courses that enabled young people to go into the next century. And it is a bill that I commend the minister for, because it is time that we had reform. The Crossroads report of the previous government some 2 parliaments ago did not achieve the full reforms. As a Pro-Chancellor Edith Cowan University at the time, I'd hoped that we would have gone much further. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.